Hello, Sarah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. All good.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to the 7th meeting of the Community and Protective Services Committee. So please, for council chambers, please check the city website for any additional meeting detail information. Meetings can be viewed via live streaming on YouTube and the city website. The City of London is situated on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenape-Wauk, and Attawandaron. We honor and respect the history, languages, and culture of the diverse Indigenous people who call this territory home. The City of London is currently home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit today. As representatives of the people of the City of London, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work and live in this territory. The City of London is committed to making every effort to provide alternative formats and communications supports for meetings upon request. To make a request specific to this meeting, please contact cpsc@london.ca or call 519-661-2489, extension 2425. I'll now look to committee for any disclosures of interest. I see none. Okay, moving on to consents. I have not been informed of anybody who wants to make any polls of any of the consent items, so I will look to committee to put the consents on the floor or speak to any of the consents. Councillor Pelosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, do we need to pull item 2.2 in order to receive the delegation status that was requested?
Yes, you do. And if you would like to pull it, I can pull that and put it under.
I will pull 2.2 and then happy to put the rest on the floor.
Thank you. Okay, so I've pulled 2.2 and I'm looking for a seconder to move the rest of the items. Seconded by Councillor McAllister. Okay, looking for any speakers for the items 2.1 to 2.7 with the exclusion of 2.2. Councillor Pribble.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair to the staff, I'll start with 2.3, please. And I just had questions in regard compared to the budget because there are certain items that are currently listed for purchasing. And when I look at page 15, excuse me, and compared to the budget, there are certain things that are not included just like pump rescue, for example, we had 3 in 25 and 26, 2. So my question is this, was this reprioritized based on the needs of fire department? And if you reprioritize it based on urgency, are the other items that were listed under the large vehicles, are they going to come back? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Ms. Smith.
Thank you. And through the chair, I'll start and then I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Hayes or Chief Hamer. That's a really good question. When we prepared those documents, it was back in July or August of last year. So at that time, we assessed and we waited until we found out what was the total amount we would get through the next multi-year budget, 2024 to 2027. And so through that, we looked at the budget amount of $226,637,000. And so our request before you today is for $26,634,500. So for all of our large vehicles, this is it. We have to order now. It's about a 24-month timeline between ordering and procuring vehicles. And also, if we order now through our group buying, we know that we can get a discounted price. And so I will turn it over maybe to Deputy Chief Hayes to talk about the priority of the vehicles in the report before you today versus the total number of vehicles in the multi-year budget business case.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your question. In looking at the what we had proposed to order compared to what we are putting forward to in this report to order, we have a resource and deployment committee that was looking at what vehicles we should have. And so the pumper rescues are more expensive. And so one of them you'll see has been moved to an engine. So it actually saves us some money. In the budgetary figures, we had established a 3.5% increase, and they were coming in at closer to 6% increase year on year. So it did make it a bit tight for us, and there are other vehicles that are not on this purchase list yet that we're still looking to see if we can fund.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you for those answers. I do have a follow-up. So based on some of the things when you mentioned, Chief, the pump rescue be replaced by the engine, but when we look at 4 years, of course, we cannot anticipate certain things can happen. But based on this proposal, as of this moment, you don't see that we would need to go beyond the capital unless something unpredictable happens, correct?
Thank you.
That is correct through you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And the last question, when are we going to get the proposal for the smaller vehicles? When is that coming forward?
To staff.
We're currently working on that right now. And so I would say within the next couple of months as information comes in, then we'll be able to table that report if a report is needed at that point.
And based on current delivery times, et cetera, because everything seems to be more and more delayed, we don't anticipate any difficulties with ordering within the 2-3 months.
For the smaller vehicles, a lot of them are already in stock on property, so we may be able to just purchase directly. Those that have to be special ordered would, of course, take longer.
Perfect. Thank you for the answers. No more questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Looking to the rest of committee for any other comments or questions. Councillor McAllister.
Thank you, and through the chair, and congratulations. First meeting as chair. I have just a few comments. Starting off with 2.5, I just want to take the opportunity to thank bylaw staff in terms of the demolitions that are brought forward. I know there's a lot of work that goes into this, and I'm just happy in terms of the pacing of these that are brought forward. Just appreciate the hard work that goes into this, because I get a lot of requests in my area. It's not just Ward 1, I see these all over the city, so I'm happy that these come before us and we're able to do something. Ideally, I'd like people to use the properties, but I think we do have to send the message that if you leave your properties derelict, that we will have to act on behalf of the community. In terms of 2.6, I also just wanted to say I look forward to seeing this project, the one at Duluth Crescent. I think these are the kind of projects that we absolutely should be doing. It's great to see us increasing our affordable housing stock. And so I just want to say best of luck with staff on moving forward with this project. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. I have Counselor Pelosa next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And in regards to a question on the fire department single source requests, realizing some of the vehicles are coming for 2027, and the report on page 12 states that Cummins Inc. has advised that they're discontinuing the model of engine used by many fire apparatus, and then new models coming in 2025 at an increased cost. Wondering through you to our guests who are on hand today, if we foresee any issues with getting parts for models that we already have that we have not discontinued, that we still have in use. And the second part is, could this be comparable to vehicles when a new model comes out, that we can anticipate extra problems with it, or is it normally a smooth transition? Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. To staff.
Thank you for your question. Through the chair, I would say that the new models of engines that are coming, there's two that are affected, and that fund has been included into the ask today. I don't foresee there being any problems with our current fleet. They are expected to maintain a service stock of parts for 10 years at least, and being such a common engine, it's likely it would go well beyond that.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you for that. I do not have a follow-up.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Pribble.
Thank you, through the chair, to the staff. Just 2.5, very happy to see Hastings Drive on the list, and thank you as well. I do think that we honestly exhausted, this even going before my term, for years, and we exhausted all the options with the current, with this property, with the owners. So thank you for all that work. And when I heard a couple of months ago that we are gonna look into fixing the roof and sending the contractor there, I'm glad that the result was demolishing, because I didn't believe that it was safe. That building is to be safe. So thank you for all that work, and tremendously happy, and the entire neighborhood around is also happy, because it's not just the way it looks, but also safety and security of this property. So very happy about that. Thank you for all the work. 2.6, regarding the Duluth, and through the chair, I do have a question to the staff. And the block 5, I know it states here that it's going to be replicated to 403 Thompson Road. So when it says replicated, is it going to be really truly identical to each other?
Thank you, Counselor. Mr. Dickens. Oh, sorry, Mr. Felberg.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So what's wonderful about this is that we have the model of that property, that building available to us. So that architect is able to take that design that they've created on the Thompson Road. They're able to replicate that on that particular site. It'll be as close as possible as we can get it to, recognizing that there might be some different site constraints that we have to account for. We'll still go through site plan and all those other things. Once the servicing, once the development has moved through to that, to the stage where we can actually start the development of it. So this is really just the pre-designed design work, so that we can be ready when various programs are announced by different governments, so that we can move more affordable housing forward.
Thank you. Counselor.
Thank you, and follow up based on this kind of the pre-design work, but I have two more questions. The first one is, are there any cost savings then in terms of this being a project, same organization doing it? If there are any cost savings, that's one question. And the second one, building B, the 56 units, what is the plan for that part? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So yes, there is cost savings. So we're anticipating about a 20% cost savings from the, if we were to go out to market and go through a full RFP process. For the second stage, we haven't created any plans for that one at this point. That'll be coming forward in future. Ideally, we'd identify a partner and have them look towards creating the design and then building that building in the future.
Okay, thank you. No more questions.
Thank you, Counselor. Looking to committee, Counselor McAllister.
Thank you, and through the chair. I guess I would be remiss without mentioning 2.7. Also want to acknowledge the hard work I'm sure staff put into development of this plan. And just a question to staff in terms of the rollout. I mean, do we anticipate any issues in terms of increasing accessibility or capacity for providing these programs?
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Dickens.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. I'll start this answer and then I'll pass it off to Mr. Blaine, who's our Manager of Community Strategies and Childcare and Early Years team. There's always going to be some unknown challenges or constraints when you look at system expansion. Expanding services relies heavily on a full complement of early childhood educators in the system. That continues to be a challenge province-wide. We do have a number of local strategies around workforce development that Mr. Blaine and his team have been focused on as we look at training and incentives for recruitment and retention of ECEs. There are childcare providers now that are looking to expand, but they do run into some of those roadblocks as well. We've taken a number of very strategic steps to address the accessibility and targeting access and inclusion under the new Canada-wide early learning and childcare program, but also locally how we can ensure that new childcare spaces match our local demographics and our priority needs as well. So if I haven't taken all the air out of that answer, I will pass it to Mr. Blaine.
Thank you for your question. Through you, Mr. Chair. Kevin gave a great answer there. The only thing I wanted to expand on is under the directed growth strategy at the Ministry of Education. Currently, we're on track to expand close to 2,900 spaces by the end of 2026. But that is highly dependent on what Mr. Dickens mentioned there in terms of the registered ECE sector and having available staff to fill those locations. So we have a number of strategies and initiatives in this plan through our workforce strategy to hopefully recruit and retain staff in this sector, as well as looking at a number of strategies to onboard operators through that directed growth plan. But as of right now, in 2024, we are on track with that directed growth plan. And we look forward to hopefully increasing accessibility for those families that need care in our community.
Thank you for that. Councillor?
Thank you for that answer. I appreciate it. Just as a follow-up, in terms of, I'm sure you factor this into your calculations, but in terms of just the growth we've seen with our population, I would imagine that was taken into account, but I'm just curious if you want to comment in terms of just the growth that we've seen and factoring that into these programs.
Thank you for your question. Through you, Mr. Chair. So what you see in front of you, one of the biggest parts of this renewed plan was to update the data that we had access to. Our previous service system plan was working with 2016 census data. And as we know, as a community here in London, as well as Middlesex County, we have not only seen a drastic increase in families moving to our community, but also diversity in terms of the families that are coming here. So this plan that you see in front of us is reflective of the data from the 2021 census, as well as the Ministry of Education through their directed growth strategy, those 2,900 spaces that we were allocated to make childcare more accessible in our community was also using that 2021 census data.
Thank you. Councillor?
I just want to say thank you for all the answers and best of luck in rolling out those programs. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Just looking for other committee members that haven't spoke yet before I go to Councillor Pribble. I have none. Councillor Pribble.
Thank you, through the chair, to the staff regarding the 2.7 as well. There was staff mentioned that there were certain strategies that were implemented with focus on also on the local needs. What is our plan now, let's say, if we implement these strategies and as the time goes, how are we going to review if these strategies or other strategies are the best fitting our community, and what is the process going to be? And if we find out, let's say, some of them are not the best for our community or are not working, how are we going to address it during these times ahead? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Through you, Mr. Chair. That's a great question. Something that we really are proud of in this plan is the flexibility that our strategic priorities allows for the next 5 years. You can imagine putting a 5-year plan in place. One thing we noticed with our last plan is we had a worldwide pandemic show up within 1 year of implementing that plan. So lessons learned from that made us reconsider how we prioritized our local needs and made sure that we really focused on the provincial priorities, which is really around inclusivity, quality, accessibility, and affordability. And you will see those hopefully mirrored in the 5 strategic areas of focus in the plan in front of you there. And our goal with measuring our progress, there is a commitment in there annually to review the action steps that were in the implementation plan to make sure that they're still relevant for our community. And there will be an annual report to the community and to council to outline the progress of this plan. And something else that we are very much committed to through this plan is ongoing engagement. So there is a very extensive engagement plan put in place to develop the plan in front of you, but to make sure that we're still reflective of the needs of our families, caregivers, and children, we will have an ongoing engagement process that will involve talking to families, children, community partners through already established means. So that we continue to hear what their needs are, if we're affecting any of the outcomes that we were looking to achieve through this plan, and then to course correct if needed.
Thank you very much for the answer, and I was glad to hear that we are going to have a lot of engagement and we'll be able to adjust as needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Looking to committee for any other comments or questions for the items 2.1 to 2.7, excluding 2.2? Okay, I see none. Let's call that question.
Councillor Trusso,
Also votes yes.
closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
Okay, that it's not over, actually. We still have more scheduled items to go. Thank you, Lawrence. We are on scheduled items. I have no scheduled items, and items for direction. We have the pulled item 2.2, neighborhood decision making. So I will look to committee to put that on the floor. I'm actually looking for a motion to approve the delegation. Okay, moved by Councillor McAllister, seconded by Councillor Pribble. So I'm looking for the delegate. Okay, we need to vote on this first, so just prepare yourself.
Also votes yes.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
Okay, Mr. Samuels, thank you for submitting your delegation prior to the meeting. You have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, members of the Community and Protective Services Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about the Neighborhood Decision-Making Program. I'm personally a big supporter of this program, and I'm really glad to see your committee taking a closer look at it. Over the past 2 months, the Environmental Stewardship and Action Community Advisory Committee has requested an opportunity to discuss this program with staff. We were advised by staff to wait until after this report was received by your committee, and we are still looking forward to meeting with staff. Should our committee have feedback to share at that point, it will be reported to council through the Civic Works Committee. Because we've not yet passed a resolution as a committee, I'm not here to speak on any recommendations on the committee's behalf. However, I wanted to let you know about the substance of our discussions about the neighborhood decision-making program to date. Several of our committee members, including myself, have interacted personally with this program in the past, and we have a few questions for your consideration. In general, I support the changes that staff discuss in this report. In particular, I support the changes to the process to allow for residents to vote for one larger idea that can be implemented for a larger pool of money, and then vote for up to 3 smaller ideas that can be implemented for less money. I think this will offer a much higher yield and return on investment for the city. However, I am left wondering about a couple of things that I wanted to raise in the context of this meeting and this report for your consideration. Number one is that given that the NDM program doesn't have the ability to fund every single idea that's submitted, I'm wondering what happens to the ideas that are proposed by residents through the program, are ultimately not supported, maybe because they don't receive enough votes, but that reflect gaps in existing service or infrastructure that could be filled by the city otherwise. For example, sometimes applications will ask for benches to be installed in parks where there are none, or for trees to be planted in a barren area. These requests from residents align with other ongoing programs supported by the city and could perhaps be materialized otherwise. So my question is there a process for those ideas to be received by relevant divisions of the city and acted on outside of neighborhood decision-making? For instance, do other divisions of the city have access to review all of these submissions to the program? I'm also wondering if and how applicants to the program who are not successful at securing funding are informed about other opportunities to pursue funding for their idea, such as through community grants offered by the city. In terms of our advisory committee's focus, this report does not include any mention of climate change, and we've been wondering about how the city's climate emergency action plan is considered as part of the application and review process for neighborhood decision-making. Does the city have, for instance, a minimum number of climate-focused projects that they aim to support each cycle? If they're not successful at securing funding through neighborhood decision-making, will applications that are relevant to climate emergency action plan implementation ever be redirected by staff to other funding streams for implementation? Finally, I'm wondering about what staff resources are available to applicants to support successful implementation of their project. For instance, recently a project was awarded funding by the 2023 cycle of neighborhood decision-making that aimed to distribute free fruit trees in the community. Sadly, that project was compromised when organizers left the plants outdoors at a venue. They were stolen before the giveaway event began, and I'm wondering, how can that kind of outcome be avoided? Were staff aware of the applicant's plans? Is there hands-on sort of facilitation, staff working with the applicant to make sure that their plans go ahead with success? Some of the projects that are received by neighborhood decision-making do require specific technical guidance. For example, I applied in the past for funding to support creation of species at risk habitat. At the time, staff deemed that that project was a bit beyond scope and too complicated, but it made me wonder if there were a need to consult with ecologists, for instance, or staff who work in stormwater about technical details of projects, if those staff resources can be lined up to help with implementation. So those are my questions. I don't know if there's anyone here from staff today who can speak to those. I'm just sharing them for your information to complement the report that you received. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Samuels. That was 4 minutes and 8 seconds, so you do have some extra time, but I did jot down some of your questions. I didn't get them all, but I will go to staff to see if we can get some answers for that. So, Ms. Smith.
Thank you, and through the chair, thank you very much for attending, and I'm sure my team looks forward to attending your future committee meeting. So hopefully I got them all too. I will start, and then I have 2 experts behind me, Ms. Pollock and Ms. Martino. So ideas proposed but not supported, how do you fill the gaps like benches and trees? This is a really good question. We have a feasibility committee, and it's represented from city staff from all service areas. So we are not the experts either in, for example, stormwater, trees, ecology, parks. So those staff all sit on a feasibility. They review the project, they provide their expert guidance, and they often work with my team to help craft the idea so that it meets the guidelines and hopefully it has the best success for achievement. So a really good question, for example, benches, trees, traffic calming. Because we have a feasibility committee, those staff often say, well, we already have a process, so why would we duplicate it through neighborhood decision-making? They often say, we have funds or resources to do this, so they inform the resident, and it goes out of neighborhood decision-making and into that other city process. Definitely, we refer to our community grants program, and actually this year, I think it closes very soon. We have our very first council approved a new stream called Grassroots funding, where we have $100,000. And this is for very small startups. You don't even have to be incorporated. You can be 2 to 3 people with a really good idea. It just needs to align with council's strategic plan. So we've been working with staff in Mr. Stanford's area to really get the word out to those small informal groups and individuals across London who are interested in the Climate Emergency Action Plan implementation. So yes, we do refer to community grants, other processes, et cetera. Neighborhood decision-making is aligned with council's strategic plans and all the strategic areas of focus. I had my team do a quick deep dive into the successful projects over the past number of years. And if you looked at last year, for example, there were 15 successful projects, and 7 of those would have been tied to the Climate Emergency Action Plan. And that's so it's between 40 to 50% of year of projects are actually tied very closely to the Climate Emergency Action Plan. Staff resources to support implementation, that's a very good question. We do our best to support. If a project is in a public space like a park, we take the leadership on that with the resident. We're very careful to talk to residents right from the very beginning to make sure that they or their neighborhood has the capacity to implement. We know people move, things change, people's priorities sometimes change. So sometimes projects that were a winning idea don't come fully to fruition. I'm sorry to hear about the project that Mr. Samuels referred to, but we offer our support. Ms. Martino has a team of 4 who works very closely to help support the implementation of the neighborhood decision-making projects. As they are resident ideas and resident-led, we come by invitation and we provide our support, and we also look for any technical guidance that we would need across all of our service areas. I'm not sure if I missed anything.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. I'm getting a thumbs up from the delegate, and it looks like you did answer all the questions I had here, but I will look back to you guys to see if you had anything else to add.
Yes, thank you, and through the chair, I'll just add there are quite a few intentional ways that we align to the strategic plan. So included in the submission form, there's a question that asks, how does this align to the strategic plan? So idea submitters would actually describe the alignment. We also have a new outcome that was added last year related to how to protect your neighborhood and community from climate change. So that's another piece that council approved as part of an update to the guidelines. We also have an idea booklet that is almost like a menu of ideas that folks can look at that have been successful in the past. And it includes considerations that are really important to consider because these are resident-led ideas. And one of the new considerations we're going to be adding this year is related to considerations of the environmental impact of your idea. And we have lots of tools and resources available to us, and we work closely with environmental programs to implement those tools and resources like checklists, Climate Emergency Action Plan lens. So there are lots of ways that we as staff are looking and helping to make sure that ideas are supporting climate action. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Palick. And the delegate is nodding. Yep, okay, good. Looking to the committee for any questions or comments. Councilor Pribble.
Thank you, through the chair, to the staff. First few comments. Glad to see that the participation 22 to 23 was increased. I think that's great. And also the remapping and to be more fair, I really think that's positive as well. I have a couple of questions. Is this kind of a one-year this year where we make the decision, the implementation is within the following year? Is that kind of how it works, or that's our game plan?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. We will be rolling out early this year, as mentioned in the report, 2024 neighborhood decision-making in June of this year. So everything in this report will be implemented for this year. At the end of every year, we evaluate, we send out a survey to all those who participated, who voted, who submitted ideas, who won ideas. We do a follow-up with all of our internal colleagues across service areas. So we continue to improve and enhance the program every year by implementing stronger engagement strategies, looking for more partners, or last year was very successful by extending voting week to a full week. So we continue to look for improvements and suggestions every year. So everything in this report will be implemented for June 2024 NDM.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Counselor?
Okay. And one more question. In the report, it stated that the implementation that we are planning to do this year, last year, we would have had 29 projects. And when I do 29 times, if I go even the lowest amount, which is 15,000, I come up with $435,000, and this year we have 250. What was our budget last year and previous years?
Thank you, and through the chair, since its inception, the budget has been $250,000. So why we're changing this is because last year, for $250,000, you got 15 projects through 5 geographic areas. And so if we change the voting process, so last year or currently, people could vote for their top 3. And so the top winning idea, if it was 30,000, would get 30,000, which means the next project had 20,000. If the next project was 15 or 20,000, your money, your 50,000 is used up in that area for 2 projects. So now what we're doing to help improve fairness and equity is we're saying you can vote for one big idea between 15 and 30,000. So that's one idea. And then everything below 15,000, you can vote for 3 ideas. So there are a lot of really innovative resident-led activities that are $1,000, $2,000, but sometimes it's the big parks that get the most votes. So this way, if we had used this process last year, we would have gotten a total of 29 projects for $250,000 because it would only allow one large project in each of the between 50 and 30,000 in each of the 5 areas. So now you can have one at 15,000 potentially if that was number 1, and then that leaves you 35,000 for a host of small projects that could range anywhere from $1,000 to $15,000. So you would have seen 29 projects instead of 15. You would have seen the number, I think about 11 more neighborhoods would have been successful in projects with this new process than they were last year. And I think we would have had an additional 2 to 3 more wards that would have had projects if we use this approach. So we're really hoping with fairness and equity, it will allow more people to be, their ideas to be winners, which makes everybody happy, and it'll allow us for more neighborhood decision-making projects across the city and in neighborhoods.
Thank you for that answer, and I do understand it, but the only thing is then when it's stated we could add 29 projects, and when it's stated 15 to 30,000, then when I even went with the lowest, 29 times 15,000, I came up with 435,000, and the budget is 250. So actually in the 29, that would mean that some of those projects were actually under 15,000, correct?
Sorry, thank you. You're correct. The majority would have been under 15,000.
Thank you very much. No more questions.
Thank you, Councilor. I got Councilor McAllister next.
Yes, and thank you through the chair. Appreciate the opportunity to talk on the neighborhood decision-making. I always find it interesting in terms of the ideas that are brought forward, and I really do appreciate the fact that you've really called out the fairness and equity in terms of we have 5 districts which are roughly about 100,000 people, some lower obviously, but huge areas obviously of the city, right? So geographically, and so I'm just wondering if staff could speak to in terms of the ideas that come through and trying with that fairness and equity in mind, to not have a cluster of ideas, because these are like large geographic areas spread across many wards in each section, because we have just the 5 districts. So I'm just wondering, in terms of the consideration that goes into trying to spread them out across the city.
Thank you, Councillor. Ms. Smith, and I have Councillor Pelosa next on the speakers list.
Thank you, and through the chair, I'm going to turn it over to my team because a lot of that has to do with the enhanced engagement strategies and our community connectors, and the really great job they do to engage all communities across London and the supports they supply. So I'm going to turn it over to my team.
Thank you for the question. So we are looking to expand the engagement strategies, and that expansion last year did have a significant impact on the number of individuals who voted and submitted ideas in different areas across the city, particularly in areas of high social risk. So we're going to continue to expand on that this year, and what that's going to look like is more engagements at events, so neighborhood events, special events, community-led events in areas of high social risk. So we'll continue to do that. There are pockets of high social risk in every planning district, and so we really do target at the neighborhood level. We'll be going to more events with our community connectors who speak a variety of languages. We're going to be going to more events that have a cultural focus, like the multicultural festivals. So we're looking to really reach different groups that we haven't reached before, whether or not that's a community or a neighborhood that is in an area of high social risk. We're also going to be really focusing on that idea submission phase. We already have a lot of information about what ideas are feasible, and so we can pass that on to residents before they try to go through all the process of actually developing the idea. So we're going to have our community connectors and staff available to idea submitters out in the community, looking at workshops and how to really hone in on an idea in order for it to be more successful. So that's some of the work that we're doing to expand engagement strategies. What we also want to do is continue to look at new partnerships. So one of the pieces we think was quite successful last year was partnering with our neighborhood resource centers, because they know the communities that they are in, and we saw many of those members that participate at the neighborhood resource centers come out, submit ideas, and then vote. So we will continue to look for partnerships with youth-focused organizations, Indigenous-led organizations. We have an accessibility focus we want to be considering this year as well. So that is some of the work that we're going to be doing to continue to expand that engagement. And I really do think that supports citywide implementation and spreading out those ideas within those large 5 geographic areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor?
Thank you for that, and I really do appreciate that the expansion in terms of the engagement. And further to that, I just was curious, because I think it would be nice, obviously, to have some of these across the demographic spectrum. Like, I don't know in terms of conversations we've had with, say, like, our senior centers or schools, but kids have a lot of ideas as well. Very different in terms of maybe, a senior citizen, right? So I'm just wondering if staff could speak in terms of just that diversity of ideas in terms of the demographic. And like I hear in terms of obviously catering to the different cultural side of things, but also just so we have a good spread in terms of catering to certain ages.
Thank you, Councillor. Back to staff.
Thank you, and through the chair, I can start. We often go to school classrooms. Young people are very passionate. It's my favorite part of NDM when I volunteer to do a voting, is that young people come in and they are great at going out and getting their neighbors to vote for projects. So we work very closely with the school boards to support that, and school associations to support projects. And senior centers, 100%. We've had some great projects from senior center and from retirement homes and from long-term care homes, actually. So because of our connections with the Age Friendly London Network and some of our community plans around children and youth and age friendly, we make sure that we get the message out far and wide. And we also go to our very own senior centers that the city supports in London and our senior satellites.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. I really do appreciate all the answers. I'm also just wondering in terms of like voter engagement, in terms of trying to get as many people involved as possible. I know you've spoken obviously with the engagement side, but I'm just wondering, do we have any other opportunities in terms of that face-to-face interaction? I do try to direct people to the website as much as possible for getting involved, but I'm just wondering in terms of trying to get our voting numbers up to ensure that, you know, that the projects that are funded have the widest possible approval. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Back to staff.
Thank you, and through the chair, we saw actually that our expanded in-person voting had a significant impact on the number of people that came out. So last year, what we did was introduce 5 days of in-person voting. So typically, it's just one day. You can vote online for a week, but you weren't actually able to come in and do and vote in person. So we had in-person voting available across the city in our 10 community centers, as well as Innovation Works, looking for a central location for folks to come out. And then we had in-person voting, as we always do on the Saturday at the end of the voting week, in every library across the city. And that is where we see a lot of engagement and opportunity to hear from residents. They talk about the ideas. We have people of all ages. You really see that interaction, particularly with youth and children when they come out and it's their first time sort of putting a ballot in a vote box. They're learning about the democratic process. So we continue to expand that in-person component. I think that's a really insightful comment and important. And we're going to be doing that as part of our engagement leading up to the vote as well. So again, we're going to be supporting idea submission processes through workshops and having in-person opportunities in places where people are. So that's something that we're looking at as well. Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor?
Yes, and thank you for all the answers. I really do appreciate it. And I agree with you. I just think this is a great opportunity in terms of especially giving youth and children the opportunity to, you know, directly pitch ideas, vote on them, and actually see them come to fruition. I think it's very powerful, and I hope that, you know, as they vote for that, that they can, as they, you know, get to 18, that they decide, you know, I saw direct action, so I'm going to keep voting. So I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this. I like the updates you've made. I think they'll be very impactful, and just thanks again.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor Pelosa next on the speakers list with no other speakers.
Thank
Councillor
you,
Pelosa.
Mr. Chair. As this one has been ongoing, I still have questions on this program. And the program and engagement has expanded throughout the years in the terms of council. It originally was kind of more off the side of someone's desk. So my question through you to Ms. Smith is, now that you're speaking of a team of 4, print material, digital material, and 10 days of voting, what is the estimated cost to run neighborhood decision-making?
Thank you, Councillor. Ms. Smith.
Thank you, and through the chair, and that's a good question. So even though we enhance our strategies, we do it with the same resources. We have a team of summer casual staff called our community connectors who support us not just in neighborhood decision-making, but in outdoor movie nights and other activities we do. We've had them over a number of years to support summer programs in the neighborhood supports area, and Jen and her team of 4 in total have been with us since 2017. So we do a lot, and they work almost full-time between this and other programs in the summer. This is a very concentrated effort for the team from about June to, I want to say, September.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Councillor?
Thank you. I appreciate that we've done it in the same staff complement, and I certainly don't question Ms. Martino and her team. I know she's very engaged in the community and passionate about her work. I appreciate the staff report. I know we've been trying to find ways throughout the years in the terms of council to identify some issues of getting greater engagement, different sectors of the community becoming engaged, and trying to spread the money around that people still feel empowered. I know I appreciated the idea generation. I know that staff use it as ideas of what communities are asking for, even if it's just a park bench in a park, that sometimes we find other ways to get that done outside of neighborhood decision making once staff becomes aware of the need. So I appreciate it there. I still have concerns about school board and barriers. I recognize that in some areas, the only green space available is a school. I know I have a school trying to be involved with neighborhood decision-making. They'll be back this year, and they'll be into your inbox soon, just trying to get over those school board barriers to get some work done in the community. I still see issues even with the realignment, especially for the southwest, of certain neighborhoods competing that are more affluent versus those that are underserved. So looking forward to measures to help equalize that. And as we've gone through the conversations of staff doing great engagement work with different cultural sectors in our community, looking at different ages and seniors, that always a little bit worried that I hear from some community members now that they've been trying for years and haven't gotten anything, that they're becoming disparaged with false hope and looking to no longer be engaged in the process. So as someone who became engaged in this process before being elected to council, I hear those communities' concerns and just passing them along that as we're working to find ways to do smaller pots of money, I think it could really help to address some of these issues with residents becoming disparaged with false hope of funding. So those just comments. I don't need a reply from staff as they've heard lots from me behind the scenes, but grateful for this report and the work that staff continues to do in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Looking to the committee for any further comments or questions. I see none. Okay, I need a mover and a seconder for this item. Moved by Councillor McAllister, seconded by Councillor Pribble. And I'll put the question to the vote.
Trussa votes yes.
Sorry, East Krebs having some digital issues. Councillor Pelosi votes yes.
Just a second. The clerk's just going through eScribe to resolve the issue. To the committee, if everyone hits F5. I vote yes.
I apologize through the chair to confirm, Councillor Trosso and Councillor Pelosi, you had both indicated a yes vote.
Yes.
And Councillor Trosso?
Yes.
I apologize for the technical difficulties. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you for that. That leaves us to the next deferred matters, additional business. We have none. And excuse me, Mr. Lawrence, I would have to. I know. I need decorum. I need decorum up there, please.
What do you need, David? Because I'm representing a safe
Mr. Lawrence, I have to give you this last warning. I need you to just not speak at the moment because we.
David, it looks like you voted, everything's wrapped up and you're closing. And I've been here all day.
Mr. Lawrence, I told you.
All I want to do is speak of a safer solution.
Mr. Chair, would you like a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn, please, yes.
Moved by Counselor Pelosi,
Seconded. Looking for a seconder. I said that you could speak at the next meeting if you submitted your delegation request.
I waited my turn all day.
Let's call the vote. Hand vote's fine. All those in favor of adjournment?
It's carried.
That motion is carried for adjournment. We're adjourned.